start. Okay, and then we're gonna.
Making your way in the world today takes everything you've got. Taking a break from all your worries sure would help a lot. Wouldn't you like to get away?
And good morning, everybody. Welcome to a special Thursday morning. Andy, it's one of those, you're having one of those sunrise, sunset moments tomorrow. You're moving your child back to college. Is it still sunrise, sunset
Thank
since it's not our
God.
year?
Let me tell you what. If you haven't experienced this before, it's great when your child comes back from college and then you realize you live with a needy adult who still thinks they're your child, like it was in high school, but also wants to remind you constantly that you can't tell them what to do because they're a grown up. So there's a countdown going on, and not because I'm going to miss the activity and the piles and the trash and the bigger electric bill. And yeah, I'm 54, but I am walking around cutting off light after light after light because evidently electricity in college is free.
It actually might be free in college for them. We don't know. I'm sure.
It's
Actually,
not
you know what?
free. Nothing's free.
I'm sure they find a way to bill you. You were
Baked into the tuition.
you were talking to me about my new jacket before we came on, and one of the things that I was thinking about this morning as I was getting ready to come to do the show was, you and I are, I'll be 50 next year, you're early 50s, but yet you and I are GHAs. We're still great hair Americans. And, it gets cold in my room. So sometimes I need to be able to put on a nice jacket without getting my hair messed up. And that's something that bald people don't get.
I mean, we also don't have to wax our heads, so yes, that's good. Yeah, there's a whole sequence of events that I don't think people with bad hair or no hair have to think about. You can't just go willy-nilly fix your hair and then put clothes on. That's not a thing, because then you're just going to redo everything you just did.
Yeah.
And I'm a fairly low-maintenance guy, but the last thing I want to do is go to the effort of making this look like it does, throw on a sweater, and then have to recheck and reapply and redo everything else. And we've had a bald person actually check in.
Oh, no, have we? I haven't. Oh, boy, here we go. Okay, well, nice.
A hat is just for augmenting. And let me tell you this about a hat.
Let me tell you about a hat, yeah.
My hair gets a little bit unruly. I use a hat as kind of a setting device while I drive to work. And then by the time I get there, everything's exactly where it needs to be.
You know what's so funny about that is because here's the thing to our bald friend that's watching and obviously great friend of the show. See, Craig, you have to wear a hat so you don't get sunburned on your dome. We get to decide, but sometimes you're right, Andy. If my hair's not doing its thing, if I'll throw on a looser ball cap or a cowboy hat for about 30 minutes, it falls right back into place.
Exactly. I mean, and that's part of the beauty of hats is they're multifunctional. It's not just for keeping the sun out of your eyes. All you backwards hat wearing folk. That's what it's for, is to keep the sun out of your eyes. But it's a fashion statement. It's also a utilitarian hair styling tool if you know what you're doing.
Well, exactly. I mean, exactly. And that's the thing. And, it's funny that we're talking about good hair because – one, you're right, Andy. I do have a lot of Longhorn and Longhorn and Astros zip ups and things. And yes, I live in Texas, but you keep your classroom cold enough. There you go. Wearing this one in honor of Wags for this weekend, by the way.
Well, and this is the dilemma, right? So we both live in Texas. You live in Austin. I live in Houston. I have an abnormal amount of jackets for somebody who lives in a very temperate climate. As some of you may recall from different iterations of the show, I was fairly obsessed with the Astros starter jacket that was available in the team shop last year. Mm-hmm. I ended up buying it. I've worn it for all of 15 minutes because it's never cold here. But I own it, and I have several other like it that I made several similar bad decisions when purchasing, but I'm not ever giving them up either. So yeah, I have A&M jackets. I have Astros jackets. I probably have a Rockets hoodie around here somewhere. It's just none of which I need. I mean, I might as well be living near the equator at this point.
Yeah, I'd like to tell Jessica when we talk about our thoughts about moving, because there's areas we want to move to that we love, like Upper Peninsula, Michigan. We love it up there.
Love it.
And part of it isn't just that I was going to be able to wear my jackets, but that's part of it.
I almost got my wife talked into Massachusetts, or even like a nice part of Connecticut. Not one of the shitty parts of Connecticut, but a nice part of Connecticut. I just simply to have seasons and be able to wear jackets and sweaters at will.
Yeah. Luckily, I'm super good friends with the maintenance guy here at school, or the facilities guy, so he doesn't mind that I keep my air conditioning in my classroom at 69 degrees so I can sport really amazing. Although, like a very good friend of mine today, I chose to wear some brown as well. So there you go. One of my special people in life also wearing brown today. Pretty fun.
I'd like to also mention we've had 18 people here watching this nonsense. So we appreciate you sticking in, because we've talked nothing about the Astros yet.
No.
I think you even tried to get to Billy Wagner, and we just steamrolled right past that.
I did, but you have to mention the special people in life, and sometimes it's what brown means to me. But no, you're right. We probably should talk sports, especially because it was actually a pretty good day for the local 9 yesterday. Couple of things on that. I guess first of all, since we were talking about hair earlier, we should talk about a pretty good set of lettuce on the Astros, and that is Astros closer Josh Hader. Andy, whenever you go for a second opinion on an injury, and then the injury person, the manager says, we're going to give him some space. I actually read that to Jessica, and she immediately said, oh, career's over.
I mean, I don't know that career's over, and nobody knows what's going on right now. You can read between the lines. Chandler Rome, who is usually pretty good at playing things close to the vest.
By the way, thank you for saying the statement correctly. It's not close to the chest. And ever since they said that in The Dark Knight, that's what people say, and it's stupid. It's a reference to gambling in the Old West, where they wore vests.
I mean, not to just completely derail, but as I've explained to my wife a lot, I read a lot of comic books when I was a kid, and it forced me to actually read things and comprehend them, and then figure out what they actually meant. So verbiage and turn of phrase are generally something that are important to me and that I try to practice. Having said that, so screw you, Christopher Nolan, for getting that wrong.
Brits, man.
Even though you weren't the writer, you were just the director. Anyway, yeah. Nobody knows exactly what's going on, but Chandler Rome, either on Twitter or Blue Sky, I don't know which one I was looking at last night, basically told some guy to read the room when he was griping about Hader making $95 million and he should just pitch and shut up about whatever's going on. It's not good. I'd like to live in this fantasy world where they told him everything was right and he just wanted a second opinion just to make sure everything was okay.
Yeah.
That's not what's going on. I don't know career ending is quite where I would go. I think it's more that if it is something like we're going to play doctor here for a second, a labrum tear.
I haven't played doctor in quite a while.
Well, you won't be playing it with me. I
wonder if any of the viewers would be willing to play doctor. Maybe.
If it is something like a labrum tear on his throwing shoulder, that's a 12 to 14 month recovery, and he's not young in his career. So that's where you start talking about career ending, or at least career altering whatever trajectory he had for the remaining 3 years of the contract and whatever he planned to do beyond that. So if you are going to lose that time, there's pride, there's ego, there's performance, there's the desire to go out and play with your teammates. You lose all that, and you would lose all that until maybe next year, maybe not till the 2027 season, if there is a 2027 season. And Josh Hader is one of the players who is fairly knowledgeable about what's going on with the labor situation in Major League Baseball. That's got to be part of what's weighing on his mind a little bit too, because if there's a stoppage after the 26th season and he doesn't come back until after the 26th season, that's another year of playing that he's going to miss out on. So there is a weird timing component that's all wrapped up in this. not any of which is paramount compared to just the pain and disappointment of having your season and your life derailed a little bit if you're Josh Hader.
And maybe he's facing, I mean, maybe that's a good point. Maybe he's also facing that Lance McCullers 2018 situation where, okay, you know you're going to have surgery, but you can't hurt it anymore. So now you got to wrestle with, okay, do I just try to decide to pitch through it? Which basically means we have no idea, and we should just roll with hoping to find out something soon.
Yeah, and it's hard to tell because the Astros, as we've mentioned, aren't great at giving injury reports. You and I were talking about this a little bit yesterday. Somebody needs to, I think the next level for Joe Espada's evolution as a manager is learn how to deliver bad news in a diplomatic way. Because I don't think anybody, and I'm not blaming a 13-run loss against the Red Sox 2 nights ago on Joe Espada or anything he said, but it can't be great to hear your manager talk about what a gut punch it is and how devastated he is about a player's injury. All right, the rest of you go out and play the game.
I was having this exact same conversation with somebody. She's a good follow on Twitter. You should follow her at Hayes Holly 2. She's a real knowledgeable Stros fan. We're having this exact same conversation yesterday. It isn't even just Joe Espada, the gut punch thing. It's also Dana Brown saying 80% of Jordan's better than the guys we have now. Do we know that's true? We do. But you still need, for right now, those other guys to try to keep this thing afloat, which they have done until you get your slugger back. So, yeah, like we've been talking, though, Andy, since 2020 about the Astros' inability to hire a communications department and or listen to them when it comes to those things.
And I know everybody liked to get on Dusty about his ability to talk for 40, 50, 60 minutes at a time.
Hey, Karen, baby.
Without having any ability to actually relay tangible information. But that's kind of a skill. And there's some reasons that you don't just put your laundry out to the public the second you're feeling an emotion. And Espada, I know, has to do with media availability, especially when he's at home. And there is a good portion of the fan base that believes that the front office and the manager's office owes answers about injuries. But they got to figure out a better way to communicate these things, especially when they still don't know what's happening.
Yeah, I would almost just prefer the data and not the analysis of the data. So Jordan's is facing live BP. Okay, cool. That's what I need to know. I don't need to know. We think he'll be back in a week because for 5 weeks they've been saying that, and he's still not there.
Yeah, tomorrow's August 15th. That's mid-August.
Yeah, I mean, that's mid-August, right? And, you know, a good friend of the show who has some inside data was kind of told, he was even told he thought it would be 1st of September, despite the fact that the team was saying publicly the mid-August. And so now it looks like it's going to be closer to the 1st of September. Now, fortunately, Andy, the Astros have they're not quite done with a pretty rough schedule, rough part of their schedule, but they have gone through a pretty tough road since the All-Star break and have come through it pretty unscathed. You take away the kicking the ball around in Boston, and they've now won 3 straight series, including the aforementioned Boston Red Sox, against a very hot Miami Marlins team and against the New York Yankees. And they are back to having a full game lead in the division with 41 games to go. They have an easier season remaining for Seattle, and that actually only gets a little harder for Seattle when they finish their game today with Baltimore, since that will be one of their easier teams remaining. The Astros are still, like we said, are completely in control of their own destiny. All they got to do is win baseball games, and the ability to win baseball games is about to get much easier for them. And just to give you some numbers before you respond, the cumulative winning percentage that is left for the Astros is .480. Once Seattle is done with Baltimore today, their number rises to .505, I believe.
Yeah. we have different thoughts, I think, sometimes on strength of schedule and what it actually means in baseball, because more than any other sport, game to game, it's a crapshoot.
I will fully acknowledge I'm grasping for anything.
No, I don't think it's a grasp. I think it's a valid point, but I discount that a little bit more. And some of that is vibes over data, which we are both guilty of a lot. But the feeling, and I've had this conversation with a couple of other people on Blue Sky about the Astros usually trip over their dicks against 500 or worse teams, which is valid,
Sure.
except that this year, even with getting swept by the A's a few weeks ago, even with some of the other trips they've had against the White Sox, because I think they lost a couple in the season series against them, they're still on a pace. If you just look at the games above 500 or below 500 teams that they played, for a 91 win season, if that's all they played, which is second or third against the teams that are in playoff contention right now. So they don't play appreciably worse than anybody else does. We just would really like them to take advantage, kind of like the Mariners do, because the Mariners are really good against teams that are bad, and play about 500 ball against teams that aren't great.
I got an offline comment from someone's watching that wanted to know if the Astros dicks really are long enough to trip over, and I think they probably are. Yeah.
I have no firsthand knowledge, but I would assume Jordan, just based on all the other factors.
I mean, we do often call him your dong, so yes, I do think.
I mean, your dong might be long enough for several of his teammates to trip over it.
Yeah, this is probably actually why he keeps hurting himself. Frankly,
well, you can't say that, so it's my hand.
It's my hand.
Don't touch it. Which is an old Bill Cosby thing, which we can't do anymore because Bill Cosby is a rapist. That's anyway.
Right. Yeah. Well, actually, now he's a corpse. But before he was a corpse, he was a rapist. He's dead, right?
I don't think Bill Cosby's dead.
Is Bill Cosby not dead?
Hold on. Let me effort that.
I'm looking that up right now. Oh, my God. How's Bill Cosby still alive? He's like the most evil guy on the planet. All right, never mind. Not quite a – wow. How did I think he was dead? Maybe I was just hoping he was dead.
I don't know, but the first thing I got was from the State Journal-Register. Today in the news, Bill Cosby isn't dead. So there you go.
We're really good at our jobs.
Yeah.
Even
the AI on Google, as of August 14th, 2025, Bill Cosby is still alive. Anyway, I remember what we're talking about. Yes, they all have giant penises. The whole Astros team.
That's your point is made where, and I think that's not necessarily a phenomena that's this year is applicable, because I think this year when it happened against Oakland, Oakland was playing really well, and we're still talking about rolling out ridiculously stupid lineups. Those lineups are not as dumb anymore. I noticed something when Abreu did get the save yesterday, but he also did allow 2 runners to reach. He throws hard, but I want to say he had at least 3 pitches that were 100 miles an hour or harder. It felt like he's coming out there like, I'm going to be the closer. Like he felt amped in that outing.
Yeah, he had at least that was one that was at least 101. And Callis and Blum were trying to tell people that he got mad after he gave up those 2 singles. And I thought it was really interesting because I actually watched all of the post-game stuff because I was doing something else and happened to be on. And Yiner, they asked him about that, or Eschenfelder asked Yiner about that. And he's like, he didn't get mad. He just realized he made a couple of mistakes and focused. So
I don't believe that players get mad.
But this is the level of, and I know so much of our fan base loves Blummer and Callis, but we could upgrade.
We could upgrade. Honestly,
that's my hot take for the day.
I would be happy if they just basically, I know more than anybody else watching this show, I know, and Andy knows that it's 2 different mediums, but I would love to have Sparky and Robert Ford doing both, frankly. That's what I would.
And hey, Jim, if you're looking to save money, because I know you're going to pay a payroll tax again this year, that might be a way.
Might be a way to do it. Just do a simulcast.
and keep Julia. That's all anybody cares about anymore.
Yeah.
The Julia
Don't get rid
Morales
of
hour.
Julia.
She did fine in the booth a couple times she's done it.
Actually,
Yeah.
I think
Anyway,
she did really well.
no, I think Abreu, for this team to be successful at this point, Abreu is going to have to step up. I like what I saw from Abreu. I'm going to, at this point, retract my Bennett Sousa slander from a couple weeks ago.
More outs yesterday, baby.
But he's going to have to be the eighth inning guy. And I say eighth inning guy because I think Espada said something that was accurate and necessary, and I've wanted to hear from a manager for a while, that Abreu is not necessarily going to be the closer. He's going to be the leverage guy. And so if the 3, 4, 5 hitters are coming up in the eighth inning, that's when you're going to see Abreu. You're not necessarily, or 3 left-handed hitters are coming up in the ninth inning, that's going to be Sosa's inning, because they're going to have to play matchup baseball a little bit more than they did with Hader, who was equally good against everybody. But I like that. I like deploying your weapons when you need them the most. And I know some of our fan base will lose their mind the first time Abreu goes in the eighth and Sousa goes in the ninth and something doesn't go right. But I think that's the right approach going forward for the rest of the season.
I was kind of hoping we would start to see that too, especially with, it's interesting. And one of the things I will do a shout out to is I actually have been, I do watch every episode of the Crush City Territory show with Chandler Rome and was it Tyler Stafford? Is that his co-host? I don't know why I'm blanking on that right this very second Tyler Stafford. I think they do actually a very, very good job. And I was really appreciative of them really clearing the air on a lot of this like myth about Josh Hader, where Josh Hader wants to go more innings. He asked Joe Espada to be able to do more innings. He wants to do more things to win. I don't think he's as tied to I think he would have been more open to being the eighth inning guy if it's against that pocket. I don't think he necessarily cared about save numbers because, frankly, let's be honest, he's on his last contract likely of his career.
Yeah.
And much of his issue had everything to do going back to his Brewers days when they used a lack of saves against him in arbitration, even though he wasn't always deployed in save situations. And that's a bit of why he had that reputation of, I only go one inning and I only want safe situations. Once he signed the contract with the Astros, that went out the window. And so I am to your point, am glad that we can actually start to see, because AJ Hinch used to do that a little bit in the playoffs to the end of his tenure here, where it's the eighth inning, but if I've got 3, 4, and 5, I'm going to give you my best closer, my best reliever.
And I think that's what's going to have to happen. As the picture around whatever Hader's future is for this season, at least, gets a little bit more clear. I know the specter of potentially bringing a Ryan Presley arm or a Kendall Graveman or maybe somebody who hasn't played for the Astros before off the DFA pile or the waiver pile is a thing that is probably going to happen. And we've talked about having a more experienced arm in the bullpen because that matters in the playoffs. But I think Sousa and Abreu are your guys, and they've got to find somebody who can handle 6 and 7. You need to see more outings like Hunter Brown had last night where he's pitching deep into the 7th inning. Like to see him finish it. I understand why they pulled him out. He was at 93 pitches and was starting to fly open a little bit. But Fromber's got to start doing that too. Fromber's got to have a quality start in Baltimore on Friday. We really need a quality start.
It's a home game, yeah.
But I mean, as great a story as Jason Alexander is, I don't know that you can count on him to go 6 scoreless every start the rest of the way. I was encouraged by Javier's start, even though Bregman touched him early. He looked really good for coming back for the first time in 14 months. Despite the score Tuesday night, Arrighetti made progress from his first start, which I was happy to see. So I think he's going to keep building on that. He's got to stop walking guys, but that's true of any pitcher.
And to your point, though, Javier is the linchpin in all of this. And we've been saying that because of all the guys coming back, Javier is the one who I think profiles the most as a major league ace. And I thought that before all the injuries happened. And I think that now. And I think to your point, he literally gave up a walk and a home run to the first two hitters and then nothing for the next 5 innings because he didn't even have an out. Like he got, yeah.
And you also have Luis Garcia, who is likely coming back and had got a little bit more velocity last night or the night before, whenever his last start was, because I think on August 7th, he was sitting at 92, 90, almost 93, got up to 94.7 on a couple of pitches.
94.7.
Yeah, but that's increased velocity. If he's a guy and you don't feel that he's a better starter in a playoff situation than one of the three we just mentioned, he might be your 7th inning guy. He may be a guy that you say, go in, I want you to get 3 batters and throw as hard as you can. And you also have JP France coming back. I mean, there's still positive things out in front for the Astros, and not just because all of a sudden we have a 1-game lead again in the division.
The Hader injury would have been much more crippling if it had happened earlier in the season. The reality is, to your point, when you get to October, you don't need all these. You can start to really backfill the bullpen with starters.
No, and it's going to require Espada to be a little bit smarter in his bullpen usage, because Hader is a great piece, and it becomes a crutch a little bit because you know he's your 9th inning guy. You don't know that anymore. So it's going to have to be a little bit more mindful, a little bit more, I think, looking at the analytics, a little bit more matchup driven. But the pieces are there. I think the guys just have to perform, and Espada's got to put them in positions to succeed. And it's kind of that simple.
Yeah, I mean, completely. One of the things, though, that I think about with the division race. Again, the Astros are up 1 game. And I understand, like, again, we talked about this. There's no transitive property in baseball where, because you beat one team one way and then another team another way, it matters. But I cannot ignore the fact that of these last 10 games the Mariners have played, of which they have, I think, one of 9 of them, they have basically played all teams all well under 500 and blew them out and blew the opponent out in exactly none of those games.
Yeah, several of them were 1-run games at the end of the day.
And all of them, I think, required them to use leverage bullpen arms. I don't know that they had any that were more than a 3-run win when it was all said and done.
I think what we have here, what we have here on the 14th of August is, a good old fashioned pennant race. Not a pennant, it's a division, but still you're at a playoff race, and that means you're going to scoreboard watch, and that means you're going to care about a game that doesn't apply to those 2 players because it's going to affect some other thing in the standings. And that's as angst driven as that can be. That's what baseball's fun when it's like that. It's fun to watch your team win and hope the other team loses because you get one more game in the standings, or figure out who's got to play who to make this thing happen. There were so many years as an Astros fan that I longed to be in a pennant race or a division race, instead of just, hoping that we'd get to 500 someday. So we're not in a bad position, guys. I know Tuesday felt like the world was falling in, and it's amazing how one good game against the Red Sox makes everything a little bit better. So I think that's kind of where we are.
And to your point, man, we have to win 2 of 3. I mean, like, that's the thing, is you have to keep winning series. You cannot, maybe you can look at the Detroit series, and it's in Detroit, and they're still one of the best teams in the American League, and say, okay, maybe you don't win that series, but you can't get swept. Like, you have to, you've pretty much seeded all your mulligans throughout that 12 and 18 July you had.
Yeah, and I think that last night notwithstanding, and I hope they find magic one more time today. The Orioles are not a good team. I know they've played better than the horrible start that they got off to, but they're still 12, 13 games under 500 last time I looked. We played them 7 times in the next 10 games.
Yeah.
Then you got 3 with the Rockies. Then you've got the Angels at home. And, I know the Angels beat up on the Dodgers, and I'm not going to pretend I don't enjoy that, but they don't tend to win them against many other teams outside of the Dodgers somehow. For all you guys that want to say the Astros can't beat the A's, explain the Dodgers and the Angels. You can't.
Right.
I think
Well,
the Angels have won 7 games in a row against the Dodgers.
Well, you also have to, take into factor that the Astros are going to play the A's again, and the A's did sweep them in 4 games. But this is now a very different A's team than it was when they played them because one of the biggest weapons has been traded to San Diego. Or a couple of the bigger weapons have been traded to San Diego, I should say.
Yeah, and the Athletics have 2 good young players, and they've got a couple of good pieces. And we could do a whole show on why I'm never going to be worried about the Sacramento A's, because I'm still not convinced they're ever moving to Las Vegas. But, that's not even whistling past the graveyard. I don't think the Kurtzes and Wilsons of the world will even be players for the A's by the time they get to Las Vegas, because that's how long away that is. But yeah, you've got a couple of, I'm looking at the schedule for the rest of the way, and it's, 40-ish games. You've got a series against the Mariners at home. You've got a series against the Blue Jays on the road. You've got a series against the Tigers next week on the road. And then other than that, it's a bunch of teams that are hovering around or are below 500 or have just quit, like the Yankees. And I know nobody's going to want to hear that the Yankees have quit, but they're not playing well. And it doesn't appear that anything they did at the trade deadline has gone their way.
You mean because they didn't really get a lot of pitching when that's the one thing they really needed was a lot of pitching?
Well, they got 4 relievers, one of which they've already sent down, and the other 3 have had massive explosions on national television. It's a very manageable schedule the rest of the way. The tough series are not back to back. You're not spending a long time on the road anymore. You've got games in a row, but they're not like 17, 18, 20 games in a row like we've had in the past, even earlier this season. So it's, again, everything's still out in front. The Astros just need to keep winning series.
That's right. Got to keep winning. Just keep winning. We're going to paraphrase Dory from Finding Nemo.
That's correct.
Just keep winning. Keep winning. And I feel good about him. And again, Yordan Alvarez apparently is now taking batting practice again, and he could be in games within a week. But also, too, Jake Myers could be back soon. And the lineup already is looking so much longer with the additions of Urias and Sanchez that it could go. We could be looking at a very different Astros team than even we thought in April, where the offense might actually be bailing the pitching staff out of some games down the stretch.
Well, and I'm sure, Fromber would appreciate that, seeing as he likes to spot 4-run leads to the other teams.
Yeah, Fromber tomorrow night, though, I mean, it's key. And to your point, I mean, he's going to be playing a Baltimore team that's going to be playing this evening and then getting on a plane. And at least in some of the games against Seattle, we're rolling out players with a 450 OPS. So this should be a get well Fromber game if there ever was one.
Not last night's game, but the game before, the bottom 4 hitters in the Orioles order all had OPSs under 500.
Yeah, that's not good.
It's not. And that wasn't because they just thought everybody should play that night. That was the best players they had available.
That is.
It wasn't a YMCA night.
To paraphrase Bill Parcells, that is who they are. Whatever. No, it should be good. I will say this to you though, Andy. I have pointed out to you that I have I think the Astros have now lost 8 straight games in which I've been in attendance. And so I have now sold most of my remaining tickets for this year to people. I basically will be in attendance for 2 more games. I will be in attendance on Saturday, and then I'll be in attendance 2 weeks from Saturday, and then everything else I've sold or I'm selling. So if you want to come to some Astros games, hit me up. I got some.
Well, I mean, it's noble of you to make that sacrifice. All of us should, remember where we were the last time the Astros won a baseball game and just repeat that behavior until it stops working.
I know people out there think we're kidding, but
I'm gonna get sick. Last night I had a nice piece of tuna that we seared it up, a little bit of spice, just some plain steamed rice. It was good, a simple meal. And I'm gonna have that until the Astros lose again. So I'm probably gonna get pretty sick of it, but it's
also
what you
be in
have to do.
amazing shape.
It's sure.
Because
Like all the old Asian
so
people.
good for you, yeah.
Like all old Asian man, I'm just eating fish and rice, and that'll be fine.
It'll be fine.
I won't get scurvy.
Right. It's so cool that you cook, though. I think if I ever tried to, like, if Jessica ever came home and I was making something other than something that was boxed with instructions, she might have a heart attack and just drop dead.
Let me tell you something. Searing a piece of tuna is the easiest thing. I mean, if you can put toast in a toaster, you could sear a piece of tuna. You throw some salt and pepper, maybe paprika on it, nothing fancy. You put it in the pan for 1 minute on one side, and then you flip it to one pan on the other side, and then you take it off the plate and slice it. That's it. It's done.
I'm over here going, what's paprika? Okay. Well, I think for the off season, we have all these ideas of like what to do. I think cooking with Andy should be like a once a week deal. We'll see how. We'll see
it worked for Augie. I mean, that kept the Longhorn Network afloat for years.
For years. And the best part was every time he went to a taco place, it was the best taco he ever had.
Everyone.
It's
good that he started with the worst and just kept moving up the chain.
Yeah, smart planning on his part. All right, smart planning. Thank you for being with us today on Off Day with Ballpark Nation. For those of you who aren't watching live but are going to watch and listen later, thank you for that. Craig Harmon wants to see Cooking with Chef Andy. And Craig, I also want to see Pizza with Andy, because if you tell him a city you're going to, he'll tell you where to get pizza. I mean, I'm in Boston. I go to.
Yeah, Portnoy already has this gig locked down, so I don't know that we're really going to promote that. We probably should also point out that we will start talking about college football relatively soon. They start playing in a couple weeks. Somehow you guys have the Heisman front runner who has only played in 2 games.
Well, I mean, look, and I've told you that too. I mean, I do expect Arch Manning to hoist a national championship for the 40 acres, but I do not think it will be in 2025.
Well, we'll definitely get into it, but it's I don't know what world you want to put that level of pressure on a kid because of his last name. I
appreciated his grandfather coming out and speaking for the family and saying, no, he's not going to the draft in 2026. Quit talking about it. Like, that felt like a very take pressure off my grandson kind of move.
I just hope it's real and that Archie isn't sitting in a retirement home somewhere and people are just putting mics in front of him like they do Jeff Bagwell after a couple of drinks.
Oh, man.
Because when Archie was playing, nobody went pro before their 5th senior year. So I don't know what you're
right. Well, my whole thing with Arch Manning right now too, or with Jeff Bagwell, is whenever Jeff Bagwell wants to get on the radio and he wants to talk about how he doesn't like to watch Superman because he's tired of Marvel movies, that guy is such a meathead. But before we go, we do have a question from a viewer, M Hatter 106. Andy wants to know where you buy your tuna.
I've got a place.
Do you really have a place, or is it just HEB?
No, HEB is a place, but that's not what I'm talking about.
Okay, all right.
There's a seafood place on Airline that brings in tuna.
Okay, all right. There you guys, the seafood place on Airline. You can go there if you see Andy. Approach him. He's an approachable kind of guy.
Near what used to be the Canino's Farmers Market.
Okay. All right. Sometimes I really miss living in Houston for stuff just like that. All right. For Andy, I'm Jim. This has been Off Day with Ballpark Nation. We are back on Monday, and we might talk a little bit of college football to get us started, but we're definitely going to keep talking a little bit of Astros baseball and all things Major League Baseball. Go Stros. Go whoever the Mariners are locking up with. I guess it's go Mets.
Mets.
Again,
let's go Mets go.
Yeah, let's go Mets go, and let's get off the Schneid Mets. For Andy, I'm Jim. This has been Off Day with Ballpark Nation.